chapter 37, and just talks about pretty much the issues of love and deals with the family. Deals with family. I want to give you a warning in as it relates to this lesson. Be careful with favoritism. Be careful with favoritism because um, uh, James, in the book of James, he teaches about that later on if we would have remained in that book, the series of Sunday school. But favoritism can cause a lot of friction in family or with anything really. And so what we will see today is the failure or the friction because of favoritism. It's issues of love. Um, it oftentimes, especially when you have siblings, there's what you call sibling rivalry. And because certain children require certain attention, it comes off different things in a different way. And it kind of can register and with another child and cause resentment. And definitely that's what we see in this passage. Genesis 29 and 30 tells the story of Jacob's marriage to both Leah and Rachel. Jacob always declared that he loved Rachel. The competition of the two sisters for the love of this man created a rivalry that was also evident in the home, was passed down to their children. Let me pause and say this, and I want y'all to really hear me. The attentiveness of children, they're very attentive of your attitude and of your actions, and you never want to portray, display certain things because it will cause behavior to be passed down. Obviously, the text says that there was competition, there was a rivalry with siblings between Leah and Rachel for Jacob. Jacob was the trickster from his mother's pregnancy, where his name means heel catcher. And so, as he grew up, there was a rivalry because he loved Leah. Uh, uh, um, uh, or does he love Rachel? Which one, y'all? Y'all help me. Rachel, thank you. He loved Rachel, but he had to put up with Leah to get to Rachel because the trickster ended up getting tricked. Are y'all hearing me? And so it caused a lot of friction. But if the friction is not fixed with one generation, the friction will fall down to another generation. There are families now that are split up and have issues, whatever, because of problems that are passed down. And it's sad for the generations down the line because you just know that there's a barrier or a block or a boundary because, and you really don't know what it's because you don't necessarily understand it. And later on, when you become mature enough, you will understand and see how minute it was. And so this is what is taking place. It's about childbearing. Jacob, a maidservant to bear children for Jacob in their stead. These maidservants were Zilpah and Zilpah, and Bilhah. This practice was common as just like Sarah, giving Hagar a chance to bear Abraham a son. That union produced rivalry between the women, between their children, and between the nations that sprang from them for generations to come. Joseph and his brothers inherited their mother's rivalry. Israel, whose name really is Jacob, but Israel clearly favored Joseph above the rest. And this provoked the brothers, egged on by Joseph's tattling and bragging about his divinely inspired dreams. Therefore, the brothers seized an opportunity to do away with their younger brother. When Joseph comes to them while they are far from their father's land, they plot to kill him. Reuben convinces them to change their minds and throw them in a pit, thinking he can come back later to save Joseph and win favor with Jacob. While Reuben is gone, however, the brothers change their minds again and sell Joseph into slavery. They are pleased to get rid of the object of their jealousy in any way possible. The first thing we will see between verse 2 and verse 4, the provocation. We see in verse number 2, it says, "These are the generations of Jacob and Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report." Now Israel, Jacob, loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him. Remember that. They hated him. Matter of fact, underline that in verse 4. And could not speak peaceably unto him. Here we see how the pretty much the setup of the family, and it's before Joseph, whose name means dreamer. He's a dreamer. Before he had a dream, he spent time tattletelling. In verse number 2, as a young lad of 17, he was only 17 years old, and he's already his father's favorite son since he was born, because Jacob had him in his old age. Joseph misused his favor. Do not use discretion over humility in fostering relationships with his brothers. Instead, as he worked with them, Joseph brought his father, here it is, an evil report about them, about his brothers. It was a tattletale. Usually when you are a child, you kind of get tired of kids that seem so innocent, but yet they want to tell on you, and if you tell on them, it's a problem. This word evil report, it kind of means to slander. It's ideally to, again, bring bad news. It was something that was evil. Now, he was only 17 years old, and when we continue in this point, or this verse, in verse 3, we see that Jacob, it is said that he loved Joseph again more than all of his children, only because he had Joseph in his old age. Now, when his brethren, here it is, saw that their father loved him, when his rest of the fellow family saw that he had favoritism on Joseph, when he saw that, this is what happened. They hated him. You got to be careful of how you show favoritism. Here's how he showed it. He showed it because, here it is, he made him a coat of many colors. Out of all the sons and children he had, he only gave this one a gift. This coat has different representations. This coat has similarity because in 2 Samuel 13:18, it's where a robe is worn by virgin princesses. And it is to show in that context their royalty. But apparently in this idea, it's to show that out of all the sons, he's special. This coat is not just a coat, but it's fine linen. It's detailed. It has some information. It has some it stands out. It's not only does it stand out because they don't have a coat, but the way it's handcrafted. It's literally it took some time to be handmade with the fabric and then with the colors. It's something that was given, but it's something that is seen because it stands out. And so, yes. And so when his brethren saw that he loved them by how you give. Now watch this. You can see how much you love a person by how much you give to them or what you give to them. And so when they saw it, here it is. The rest of the siblings did not have nothing nice to say about him. Couldn't say nothing nice. And so here it is. It moves on. Not only is this fella a tattletale, not only is this fella having favoritism, but Joseph now has a gift. On top of the gift that his father gave him, he now has a gift that God has given him. Now, here it is. Well, okay. The gift is that he's a dreamer. He dreams. It's nothing. I mean, everybody has dreams, but when Joseph dreams, it's something special about his dreams. And then when he dreams, watch this, he doesn't need an interpreter. He interprets himself. But here is when he adds fuel to a fire that's already burning. In verse 5, he dreamed a dream, but look at what he does. He told it to his brothers. Now, his brothers already hate him. His brothers already don't like him because his father has shown favoritism. That he has something they don't have. Are y'all with me? Now, everybody has something from God, but when you add, when you add something to him and make him feel special, he's already a tattletale. And now you want to give him special attention? We already don't like him because anything we do, he runs back and tells you. And then he's 17 years old. He ought to be too old for that. But look, did y'all underline what I asked y'all to underline in verse 4? All right, he hated him. They hated him in verse 4. But in verse 5, after he told the brethren, they hated him yet the more. It wasn't as if they didn't already hate him, but it increased. It added upon. He already got a coat. He already dreams. And now he wants to, and many scholars suggest and say that when he tells his brethren the dream, it's almost as if he's bragging and boasting. So much so, they hated him, watch this, because he told them about the dream. But we don't even know what the dream is yet. It could be the fact that he just had a dream and they hated him the more. But when you go in detail of the dream, then it's like, you know what? I really hate, you're making it worse. Here's the dream in verse 6 and 7 and 8. When he said unto them, hear, I pray you, listen, this dream which I have dreamed, for behold, we were, all of us, binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisances to my sheaf. And this brethren said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams. Here it is. They already hated him the more because he dreamed in verse 5. He just told them I had a dream about us. But in verse 8, he says they hated him for his dream and his detailed explanation of the dream. So again, they hate him. On top of hating him the more, they hate him even more for the dream and for his words. His sheaf arose, which implied that he was in the position of authority. He stood upright to be set over or to be appointed over them. And their sheaves bowed down to him as he was superior to them. Now, it's a lesson. Here's a lesson on different levels, especially for Joseph. Number one, stop telling all the time. Isn't that what you told your children? Number two, he couldn't help his father's favoritism. He couldn't help that. But when he received this dream, sometimes you got to learn to keep some stuff to yourself. The dream, if we fast forward to Joseph's life, it wasn't wrong. Chapter 50, he was definitely right. But once you learn and pay close attention to Joseph's life, yes, he was going to be an authority, but he had to go through some, and I preached a sermon, God's faithfulness and life's ups and downs. In order for him to get in that position of power, Joseph had to go through many, many problems, but it started off with the pit. And then he went to the palace. Then he went to prison. And then he went to position. Y'all remember that? Here it is. The reason why, yes, the dream, he dreamed what was going to happen, but he never dreamed how it was going to happen. Because if he was in a position of authority right then and there, guess what? He would not have had the right attitude. So he had to go through some things, some humps and some lumps, to have humility before he got to a place of honor. And so in verse 9 it says, and he dreamed yet another dream, since he's a dreamer. And this time he told it his brothers and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother, thy brethren, indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the sayings. Watch this. Pay attention to the two responses. After he dreamed another dream, this time he not only shared to his brother, and he shared to his father. His father asked the question, should your brothers and I and your mother bow down to you? Guess what? It was going to happen. It was on his father's deathbed, and it happened. However, notice the response, because not everybody can handle your dreams. Some will envy you. And that word envy, it really surpasses jealousy. But it gives the idea that I'm jealous. And that's what the brethren who now people, here it is. Let's shed some light on this. People who hate you will envy you. People who hate you will envy you. Now with the father who was a little more mature, what he did was observe the dream. Here it is. It means he gave heed. He listened. He kind of put it in his back pocket to hold on to until later. Are y'all with me? So therefore, watch this. When you have dreams and share them, everyone will not react or respond the same way. Some will envy you. Some will kind of listen to you. Does that make sense? Now, if people envy you and discourage you and discount your dream, guess what? They hate you already. Are y'all hearing me? And so, with that being said, this he's dealing with family friction because it's causing a fallout because of the favor that Joseph has. Ideally, here it is: favor from his father, and then favor from his father. Are you with me? And it does not discount anybody else. But for some reason, he's placed in a position, or he's given certain abilities, here it is, for later on. Sometimes God gives you gifts early so you can now mature in what he wants you to do with the gift. Does that make sense? Again, he was only 17 years old. When I answered the call to preach, I was 17 years old. But it was for later to mature later. Does that mean? Now, we don't know when later's coming, but we know there's a later. All right? And so in verse 23, it skips down. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat, and his coat of many colors that was on him. They took him and cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Here it is. Sometime after these dreams, Joseph is sent to track down his brothers, journeying several days away from home to find the flock. The brothers see him coming, and they plot and plan to kill him. Reuben dissuades them from outright murder, and they throw him into the pit. Reuben was not on good terms with Israel, Jacob. He secretly planned to come back and rescue Joseph out of the pit to get in Israel's, his father's, Jacob's, good graces again. When Joseph shows up where his brothers are herding their flock, they stripped Joseph. Number one, look at that. They stripped him. They stripped him of the coat. They literally take it off. They want to strip him of his father's gift. And then it's a coat of humilities and humble humbleness, and he was walking around proudly and favored as a dreamer, and they envied him, they hated him so bad. They wanted to take everything. Watch this. They didn't give it to him, but they wanted to get it from him. The brothers then threw him into a pit. They conspired. They were going to kill their own brother. And Reuben said, you know what, never mind. Let's not kill him. I mean, I'm down with, doing something against him, but let's not go to that extreme. Let's just throw him in the pit. And secretly, I'll come back and get him. And because somewhere along the way, me and Pops ain't seeing eye to eye. So if I look after and rescue his favorite son, it will look like, Pop will love me and show me a little attention. So while the brothers plotted to kill, Reuben had his own plot to get in Pop's good graces. And so when they threw him in the pit, after they took up, they didn't want to get their coat dirty. So they took it off of him. But they threw him in the pit that was empty. But here it is. They threw him in there with no water in it, which suggests that, here it is, they could have planned and plotted that he would die from dehydration. If he's in a situation with no supply, guess what? He's going to succumb. Y'all with me? And yet, while he was in the pit, there were some Madianites and merchantmen that came by. They drew and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Now, let me finish reading this. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. Here it is. He goes from sibling to slave. He goes from sibling to slave. All because, quote unquote, he was special. Just because you're special, don't expect you won't find yourself in a situation. Now, with that being said, notice what happens. When they come by and see Joseph in the pit. They pick him up, they sell him, but look how much they sell him for. 20 pieces of silver. How much did Judas sell out Jesus for? 20 pieces of silver. Pay attention to that. These siblings sold out Joseph for 20 pieces of silver, and Joseph would eventually be in a position that his siblings needed him. Judas sold Jesus out for 20 pieces of silver. And the same people that wanted to kill and eventually killed and crucified Jesus, guess what? Needed him. When people sell you out, even if the price ain't that right, what happens, you will learn that they're going to need you. They're going to need you eventually. It might not be now, but they're going to need you. Here it is. How they looked at Joseph now, when they finally see Joseph again, they don't even notice him. But Joseph noticed them. But the good thing is that when he's in authority, he has now maturity. Because Joseph was in a position to get back at them, but he realized it ain't worth it. Because at the end of the day, here it is, you want to help, with the place of honor you're in. If I can help somebody, then my living will not be in vain. It's the issue of love. But here it is. When people have issues of love or issues in loving you, watch this. When the time comes, because it's going to present himself, will you have that same issue in loving them back? Pay attention to that. Because at the end of the day, when Joseph, he says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And sometimes God uses people to cause you to go through things, here it is, so you can learn who God is. They'll put you down, but he's able to pick you up. How do you go from a pit to a position that's right hand to the king? Nobody. But it does not, watch this, from the pit to that position, it doesn't mean that he didn't go through problems. But in the midst of every problem, God was with him to learn that what we go through, here it is, we grow through. Y'all with me? You got to go through it from the pit to the palace to prison, because he was lied on. Are y'all with me? He was framed. He was talked about. And you got to go through it. You can't get mad. He never tried to get back at anybody. Watch this. That was his old way. But he never tried to get back at anybody. And when God, when he finally came to a position of power, he used that power not to cause pain or problem, because he had the opportunity, but he provided for them and cared for them more than they cared for him. Don't allow others' issue of loving you to be your issue of loving them. If I didn't say nothing else, I said something there. And this is your word, your lesson for today. God bless you and God keep you is my prayer. Let's pray. Dear God in heaven, how we love you, how we thank you, how we praise you for this day. Give us what we need as we go forward. Help us as only as you can, and be glorified in all that we think, say, and do in Jesus' name. For that's the only name that matters. We ask it all. Amen. I want to shout out my grandfather for allowing me to use his book, because I ain't got mine yet. So I was able to teach y'all the lesson. The issues of love. It seems like I think we'll be in this book for a while. So Joseph chapter, what is this, 37? Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it.